Muppets Tonight was a really special show, and in fact, personally, I'd say it's my favorite Muppet show of all time. The humor, the characterization, the stories, they were as close to perfect as you could get. And all these are reasons why I find it really surprising that Muppets Tonight only lasted 2 seasons. In fact, ABC considered it a failure. Now, why did it fail? Man, that's a complicated question, and it's one with a lot of different answers. It's like the worst ever choose-your-own-adventure book where no matter what, your character always dies.
Did somebody say bang?
No.
So let's take a look at the history of the show and find out what exactly killed Muppets Tonight. Firstly, it's important to highlight that before the show came out, the whole Muppets franchise was in a dire condition. Nobody knew where to take it or even if it could survive. The Jim Henson's company's main sources of success and revenue came from things like releasing the old movies on home video, releasing educational PC games, or releasing puppet-based but not Muppet-related projects like Fraggle Rock. This is largely because of a weird stigma that was forming that puppets were only for kids. Even though the original Muppet Show was most certainly not. I mean, have you seen some of the names of these episodes? This caused a lot of people to stop paying attention to the Muppets because they're just kids' characters. Who really cares? Yeah, they have a new movie coming out, so what? I don't want to go see a kids' movie, I want to go see Violence, the movie! Whenever the Jim Henson Company tried to break free from this image, it would end up being a failure. So they had to go with the traditional children's film, family film fare, and it didn't really work out so well. There's things like this, and this, and this. But then a little show called Dinosaurs made its way onto ABC, and it changed everything. This show was a gigantic hit. Even though Jim Henson wasn't alive to see it premiere, it had a lot of its quirks and personal touches and helped remind people that the Muppets were more than just kid stuff. This led ABC to greenlight a brand new Muppet show, but this time, it would take advantage of the popularity that things like Dinosaurs had built. In other words, it was going to appeal more to teens or adults, not necessarily little kids. And the Jim Henson Company was more than happy to do this. Like I said, the stigma that Muppets were only for kids caused them to make a lot of lackluster projects, and now, they finally had their chance to break out of it and bring the Muppets back in the way that they were supposed to be right from the beginning. This show would end up becoming Muppets Tonight, and when the first episode premiered on March 8th, 1996, it was a pretty big hit. But then, suddenly, out of nowhere, it wasn't. Yeah, the momentum just stopped. Eventually, the ratings faltered, people forgot about the show, and ABC decided to pull the plug after 2 short seasons. Muppets Tonight was getting good reviews and all, but it wasn't enough to keep the show afloat. So, the show had to go. But what happened exactly? What caused the show to just fade away? What caused the drop in viewership that doomed Muppets Tonight to lasting only 2 seasons and then being delegated to eternal obscurity? Let's add an echo for there. Well, the short answer is, I don't know, and nobody does. Because we're not able to get a firm answer. You can't really figure out what the audience was thinking at the time, but that didn't stop the cast and crew from coming up with their own ideas, and we're gonna take a look at them right now and see if any of them make sense. I'm sure the truth has got to be in here somewhere. Let's start off with an easy one. Like we mentioned, ABC originally greenlit the show for teens and adults. But according to Brian Henson, the creator of the show, the production was able to hold up its end of the deal, but ABC was not. Sure, it was being aired alongside primetime shows and TGIF, constantly being shuffled again and again. But the ratings were still pretty strong, especially for the network's weird juggling for where to put the show. But then ABC gave Muppets Tonight much earlier time slots when younger kids would be around, which is weird because focus groups showed that little kids didn't really resonate with Muppets Tonight. It was a little too zany, a little too wacky, and much too adult. For some reason, even though this was proving to be a terrible idea, ABC decided to go all out with this and double down on their bad decision. Suddenly, the stigma reared its ugly head again, and the show started being marketed towards little kids. You know, the exact demographic that they weren't going for? Gee, I wonder why it ended up failing in the ratings when they did that. It seemed like such a good idea, but that's not the only story we got. Former Dinosaurs designer, writer, and director Kirk Thatcher, who also had a lot of involvement in Muppets Tonight, by the way, said that it was all about the humor. It was way too ahead of its time. According to Thatcher, people didn't really latch on to what he calls Gen Z style humor. Which, to be fair, Muppets Tonight was not like any other Muppet production before. It had a very different structure and sense of humor. It's a lot snappier and full of not quite lol random moments, but it does like to delve into the absurd and bizarre, especially when compared to other Muppets projects. Now, of course, this style of humor is everywhere these days, but in the mid-90s, especially for a Muppet show, not really. So according to Thatcher, if the show came out today, it would probably be a big hit. It's just that people weren't ready for it at the time. Now, this is the weirdest one if you ask me. Kevin Clash, who plays the baby, gotta love him, as well as the main character of Muppets Tonight, Clifford, says that, yeah, Henson and Thatcher are right, but the real reason why people didn't like Muppets Tonight was because of what they did to Clifford! Not that Clifford, this Clifford. To be fair, Clifford went through a lot of changes for Muppets Tonight. He went from being a cool, laid-back sort of musician guy to just being Kermit. You can argue in the comments all day about whether or not that was a good decision, but really, do you think people in the mid-90s would have stopped watching the show purely because a B-list Muppet acted differently? I don't think so. According to Steve Whitmire, former performer for Kermit the Frog, the show's failure was because the first season tried way too hard to be like The Muppet Show, and then only in season 2 did it find its own identity, but by then, it was too late. Yeah, if you guys remember Thatcher's theory, this one doesn't really make a lot of sense. In fact, if you look at the theories, they're basically the total opposite. Thatcher says that it was too different, but Whitmire says that it's too similar. What's going on here? If you ask me, this is kind of a Rashomon situation where everyone has their own story to tell, everyone has their own influence, so you gotta kinda look at them all together, compare and contrast, and see which elements from which stories end up making the most cohesive narrative. And if you ask me, they're all kinda right. Except for Kevin Clash, I don't think he's right at all. Sorry, buddy. I like Clifford too, but no, sorry. Here is, from what I can tell, what actually happened with Muppets Tonight. Muppets Tonight tried to be a lot like The Muppet Show in terms of presentation. It had similar elements like a variety show, wacky skits, funny, colorful characters, and celebrity guest stars aplenty. However, it decided to take its writing and humor in a different direction. And this was a direction that didn't really resonate with the audience at the time. Then, of course, when ABC saw that it wasn't exactly getting the reaction they wanted, they decided to go back on their word and try a whole new audience instead. And by the time they figured out that that didn't work, it was too late. They already labeled it as a kids show, so the damage was done. So it was up to the production company to shake things up and try some new things in season 2. And even if to the crew, at least some members, it was an improvement, season 2 was not able to bring the old audience back, and therefore, Muppets Tonight had to go. I would like to say that this story had a happy ending, but it doesn't. It actually gets much, much worse. After Muppets Tonight was canceled, the Jim Henson Company decided to make one more edgy Muppet product to see if they could try and get what they wanted to get out of Muppets Tonight, but it didn't really work. That film was Muppets from Space. And yeah, that kinda killed the Muppets for a very long time. It wasn't until many years later with the movie simply titled The Muppets did they actually make a comeback. Up until that point, they were basically in limbo. Children's purgatory, being viewed as nothing more than funny, colorful kids characters. Which is exactly what they were trying to get away from, but as the life of Jim Henson proves, which we've discussed in this video by the way, go check it out if you're interested, when your audience labels you as one thing, you're probably never going to escape it. Yeah, Jim had to deal with that a lot in his life. And, to be honest, the stigma still hasn't gone away. Remember the ABC sitcom, once again simply titled The Muppets? There was a big controversy over that thing because, oh no, it was adult. It was edgy. The Muppets are supposed to be for kids! I think we've discussed this point enough, so let's move right along. Man, Muppets Tonight, what a wild, wild show. I have a whole bunch of VHS recordings of the show when it was aired on Disney Channel, and I fell in love with it right away. But I guess if I was around in 1996 and I grew up in a completely different culture, it probably wouldn't have stuck with me as much, at least according to the cast and crew. For whatever reason, Muppets Tonight was never able to catch on. Although, I think that if a lot of people started watching it now, it could end up having a big underground following, kind of like what happened with Moral Oral, where it was kind of ignored at the time by the mainstream public, but only now has it become this huge thing that everyone loves. I think the same thing could happen to Muppets Tonight if people gave it a shot. Please do, I highly recommend it. And then maybe, just maybe, we can have another Muppets Tonight style show where they're able to have snappy dialogue, weird silly situations, and most importantly, have the audience that they always wanted to have. Well folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? Have you seen Muppets Tonight? If so, what do you think of it? Pretty good, right? Comment below and let me know because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. And now I'd like to take a minute to thank our Patreon executive producers, Valkyria, MD the Dude, Blackjack, Unkale, Manny Paredes, Edward Haas, YouTube Milkwad, HR Hoffman. Who else but Zane, I Am Fove, and Albert Robinson. If you'd like to be just like these beautiful people and have your name read at the end of every Media Mementos video, then why not donate to the Patreon? There's a lot of good reasons to do it, and this is one of them. Alright folks, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time, okay? Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a date with shelf number 126. Oh yeah! Muppets Tonight Marathon, here I come!
Be a real bang-up affair.
Did somebody say bang?
No.